Hello, welcome, and if you've been here before, welcome back. Today we're going over my top 10 white cards for Battle Spirits Saga. But first, some honorable mentions. Regain is a card that I will admit by itself is only okay, but this card almost made the list for being one of the key combo pieces in the Yellow Luster deck that uses Michaela's effect to continuously use Regain for free to attack infinitely. There's also a second reason, which I'll touch on later. Mecha Beast Fortress Namangard is the reason to build a Machine Beast deck. The reason this doesn't make the list proper is that it's too reliant on finding the Nexus Fortress Metropolis Naman City. If the deck doesn't find this Nexus, it will struggle to function properly. And Mecha Wayne Duck is a card I wanted to put on the list because it's an early game card that really wants you to build around it. But I don't think there's quite enough good cards to really facilitate playing this. But do keep an eye on this duck. It could take your soul when you least expect it. Number 10. Armored Dragon Ship Enterprise. This is an 8-cost spirit with 4 reduction symbols. It has armor for red, purple, and white. At level 2, when this spirit blocks, refresh this spirit once per turn. And at level 3, all of your spirits gain armor to red, purple, and white. The Enterprise isn't going to win games by itself, but it will make sure that you survive to find your win conditions. This card is great to pair up with Fanatec Elk to make the Elk even harder to get rid of. The only reason this isn't higher on the list is because this card is very expensive, and I'm not sure if it's entirely realistic to get this out at level 3 alongside Fanatec Elk consistently. Number 9. Dream Bomb. This is a 5-cost magic with 2 reduction symbols. It has the burst effect when you lose life. Select one of your opponent's nexuses and return it to their hand. You may then pay this card's cost to activate its flash effect. Select one of your opponent's spirits and return it to their hand. This card just makes me sad whenever I compare it to the much cheaper Dream Ribbon, but this card makes the list simply because it's the most flexible non-destruction removal spell that's available. There are important big spirits that this card outs that other cards simply don't. While I don't like how expensive it is, it's the best we've got. Number 8. Dual Gun Mech Lord Derm Dyna. This is a 7-cost spirit with 4 reduction symbols. When this spirit attacks, pay this spirit's soul core to select one of your white spirits for each nexus either player controls. The selected spirits cannot be blocked during this turn. And at level 2, during either attack step, when this spirit would be destroyed by your opponent's effect, you may pay a core to keep it on the field refreshed. The first effect of this card is more powerful than it initially looks. It doesn't just make the spirits unblockable for a single battle, it makes them unblockable for the entire turn. In other words, you can combine this with the magic card Regain to make the unblockable spirit attack again to potentially get that last damage in. It's a really neat trick that will help the mecha deck win games that it would not be able to otherwise. Number 7. Infinity Mothership. This is a 5-cost nexus with 2 reduction symbols. During the opponent's attack step, at the start of the step, place all cores from your trash into your reserve. And at level 2, during your core step, if you control a mecha spirit, gain 2 cores during your core step instead of 1. If the Derm Dyna mecha deck does take off, this card will be a big reason why. It does everything for the deck. It helps you ramp to get to your big cards faster, and it lets you regain cores to allow you to use defensive cards on the opponent's turn when you wouldn't be able to otherwise. Number 6. Counter Sword. This is a 5-cost magic with 3 reduction symbols. It has the Burst effect. When the opponent resolves a spirit's when-summoned effect, select one of your opponent's spirits and return it to the top of their deck. You may then pay this card's cost to activate its main effect. Place a core from the void into your life. In some ways, this is simply the more powerful version of Dream Bomb. It's non-destruction removal that sends the spirit to the top of the deck. The downside is it's more situational, since you're reliant on your opponent playing a specific spirit to proc this. Regardless, this is one of the most powerful burst effects we have, and it will see a bunch of experimentation as one of the bursts of choice in both white and non-white decks. Number 5. Dinosaur Harrier Turbo Rex. This is a 6-cost spirit with 3 reduction symbols, and as an additional summoning cost, you must place all cores from one of your spirits that cost 3 or more into your reserve. During the opponent's attack step, you may select one of your opponent's spirits at the start of the step. If possible, that spirit must attack first this step. And at level 2, when this spirit attacks, select one of your opponent's spirits that does not have Ascend and return it to their hand. I went back and forth a lot on this X-Rare, and if I'm being honest, I'm still not entirely sure about this card, but I can't deny, this goes great with Fanatec Elk. Its first effect may not seem that powerful at first glance, but this, in combination with Fanatec Elk's indestructible blocking ability, lets you play a grind game of slowly whittling the opponent's board. Its Ascend cost makes this card a bit awkward, since white doesn't really want to give up precious blockers, but it just might be worth the investment to play this powerful card. Number 4. Valkyrie Mist. This is a 4-cost spirit with 3 reduction symbols. When summoned, select one of your opponent's spirits that costs 7 or less and return it to their hand. I really like this card. If the opponent doesn't have a clean answer, this one card can allow white to win out of nowhere. At the end of the day, Battle Spirits is a game of getting more attackers than your opponent has blockers. In my opinion, every white deck should have some number of this card. Number 3. Suppression. This is a 4-cost magic with 2 reduction symbols. Select one spirit. It gains 3000 BP during this turn. If you spend a soul core as part of this card's cost, that spirit can block while exhausted during this turn. This is one of the best magic cards at white's disposal. This card is a big reason why Fanatec Elk will be good at all, allowing white to infinitely block. Even if I thought that white decks didn't have room for this card, Suppression is so important to the Fanatec Elk deck that it would make this top 10 regardless. Number 2. Divine Moonsky Beast Fanatec Elk. This is a 7-cost spirit with 3 reduction symbols. When this spirit blocks, during this turn, this spirit cannot be destroyed by your opponent's destruction effects, or as the result of battle, and it cannot have its cores removed by your opponent's effects. At level 2, at the end of the opponent's turn, if you did not lose life this turn, place one core from your opponent's life into their trash. This is the win condition for white control decks, and what I think the best white deck will revolve around. Pairing this with cards like Suppression and Regain is going to be a great annoyance to the opponent in trying to deal damage. The only question is how best to build this deck. Do you pair it with Turbo Rex to better control the opponent's attack step? Do you pair this with Enterprise and just wall up to the best of your abilities? Do you use all 3 in some kind of insane combination? Or is it going to be something else entirely? Honestly, I have a hard time conceptualizing how best to build this deck. But regardless, I predict this starter deck card is going to be the face of the best white decks. And at number 1, and probably the most hyped up card of the set, Absolute Ice Shield. This is a 4-cost magic with 1 reduction symbol. It has the burst effect: when you lose life, place a core from your reserve into your life. You may then pay this card's cost to activate its flash effect. When this battle ends, end the attack step. This is arguably the best card of Dawn of History. Ice Shield is the best defensive option for all decks. I very well could see games be decided on who has Ice Shield and who doesn't, especially in aggro mirror matches. Now, even though Ice Shield has a burst effect, it's almost better to keep in the hand to have the flexibility to activate while blocking with a spirit, especially in white decks that play Fanatec Elk. Of course, that's not to say that it isn't good as a burst card, because it's very good. Not all decks are going to have the room in their main deck for this card, but at the very least, it will be considered to be put in the side deck to help against aggressive matchups. Make sure to check out my top 10 lists for red and purple, and I should have the video for yellow a week from this video's release. Until next time, laters.